Let's talk about Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP. Not just in terms of their incompetence in Scotland, how much they've ruined that part of the UK, but their fantasy ideas about joining the European Union. Yeah, good luck with that. So we now have reports that, and we had it before, over the past couple of months, a number of European countries, including Spain, especially Spain, have kicked off about the idea that the SNP wants Scotland to join the European Union now that the UK have left. Nicola Sturgeon thinks that the European Union would welcome them in open arms and everything, but that's not actually happening. The latest update we have is that Nicola Sturgeon is now humiliated because almost all 27 EU member states would oppose Scotland joining, or I was going to say rejoining, but they weren't really a member as Scotland, they were a member as the United Kingdom. If they try to become independent or even as part of the UK, good luck with that. That's not happening. So Ben Habib, who's the former Brexit MEP, talked about this with the Daily Express on this issue. So let's go to that clip and see what he says.
Well, I think that she's able to demonstrate that she complies with the Eurozone requirements, and she's able to demonstrate that Scotland would be a net contributor to the EU. I don't think any of the 27 member states would want Scotland. Why would they take on a liability? And the other point you've got to remember is that a lot of states in the EU also have issues. Spain, for example, I think would be very close to Scotland with open arms for fear that it would stoke its separatism in Catalonia and the Basque regions. There's its own problems, and if it's seen to be assisting Scotland in breaking away from the UK, well, it's setting a precedent for its own problems, isn't it? And so I think there would be huge pushback from within the European Union. Nicola Sturgeon, let's just be clear on Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon uses this whole EU thing as a political whipping horse against the United Kingdom. She does it to keep herself in power. She does it to try to mobilise the Scottish people behind her. And she does it also to cover up the shocking record that SNP has.
Well, that's a good point, but I have my own theory about Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP on this issue. So they all they care about, as we know it, is power and staying their own Scottish government, whatever you call it. And but in reality, they spent the last few years in power, complaining and blaming all their problems, all the issues that they have created, on Westminster, saying it was a central government from London. Blame London and Westminster. So my theory is that they want to join the EU. Firstly, this is just to oppose the Brexit side and say that it's the Brits that are little Englanders and they don't really care about internationalism. But in reality, she wants to use the European Union and Brussels as the next scapegoat to every time the Scottish, the SNP ruined Scotland, they could blame Brussels and say, oh, well, we're trying to help, but the directives and the regulations coming from Brussels aren't really helping us. So don't be surprised if one day, which is unlikely, SNP Scotland somehow joined the European Union, and this happens. I said it here first, but it's not going to happen anyway because these idiots, they don't really care. Now let's talk about Britain because we have some good news about trade deals. A lot of people, including you guys watching this channel, have been asking about updates on the trade deals. Now, we talked about South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, even Canada. Let's talk about India because so India have been in negotiations with the European Union for a trade deal for about a decade or so. They actually paused the trade talks in 2013 because they couldn't agree with anything because the European Union take decades sometimes to actually negotiate a trade deal because they use a centralized planning system to negotiate on behalf of 28 and now 27 countries. Whereas the situation we have between Britain and India is that they want to come up with an agreement between the two countries very soon. And we've had this before, again, with other countries like Australia and New Zealand and others, even the US. That might take some time, but we will have a skeleton-free trade deal with America soon. So this is actually interesting news because what we have is that India has said that trade talks were possible with both the UK and Brussels and said that it was up to both negotiating teams to pick up. So that's the thing. So the issue with India is that in this article they talk about the problems with China as well. And what they wanted from the European Union for years and years is to just step up their game and negotiate and give them a trade deal. The UK have now come up and they now say that the UK is now probably able to skip the queue because they're an independent state and it's a lot easier to negotiate with one country. And now over the last 6 years, the Indian Prime Minister Modi and his government have been trying to push exports through various programs, but they didn't succeed. And with all his flaws, this guy, and he's not a perfect prime minister at all. He's been quite strong against the European Union and their protectionism, but also China. So, firstly, don't be mistaken. This guy is not a complete free trader either. He's a protectionist too. But most big countries these days are. America, again, India, the European Union, if you see them as a country. But their issue is specifically with China, because last year they pulled out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership because of they feared that China's access to its markets could be problematic. And New Delhi has also been placing trade barriers to stop cheap imports from China and replace them with their own locally made goods for domestic consumption and exports. Now, one of their ministers believed that their locally sourced produce could help engage the trade talks with the UK. And actually, that's true. Now that we want to, as a country and as a government, we want to change our relationship with China, it would be good to have a second place, a backup place to go to. So India, if we manage to negotiate a good trade deal, which is fair, and it's not going to be the same that we have with China, but they just essentially cheat their way through our markets, then we won't need China anymore. And so that's kind of good news. And the other issue that we have is that there's a potential trade agreement that is also coming from Turkey. So Turkey and the UK have been negotiating. We've had Liz Truss and Dominic Raab talking with the Turkish government. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Turkey as a government, but we cannot necessarily just pick and choose in that sense when it comes to trade. If a country crosses a line, whether it's Saudi, whether it's China, then absolutely. And Turkey have been quite dodgy recently. But if the trade agreement between the UK and Turkey is primarily economical and primarily based on business and trade, then I don't really care, as long as it benefits both sides. But again, still stay alert, because if Turkey crosses a line in the region, then I don't really want to be friends with them. I don't want a partnership. So this is the update we have. So for the sake of the government and the way things are going, actually, all these trade talks are going well. The European Union are certainly panicking because they weren't expecting the UK to be this successful so quickly. Let's go to, it's Monday, so let's go to the questions we have received from the members of our channel. As you know, obviously, once a week we answer the questions. If you want to get involved and become a member, check out the link in the description or just go on youtube.com/myotc/join. Mary Davis asks, why is Boris suggesting masks now? We were ready to go out and spend again, as people are even allowed in from abroad without quarantine. Maybe we should stay in after all. No, Mary, so the news came out today that Boris doesn't actually want to make it mandatory, unlike other places like Wales. So that's good news, because it will be quite bad for business and also for civil liberties for that sense, if you make wearing masks in shops and public areas mandatory. So it's not really, so don't worry about that. It's not going to happen. Anne Hayes says, with the reported of up to 200 economic migrants being landed in Dover yesterday, while Priti Patel was agreeing yet another deal and treaty with the French, do you think this fiasco will ever be stopped? So we talked about this in the video that I just uploaded before this at 5:45 p.m. So make sure to go and watch that video. I talk about what Priti Patel is now planning to do, which is to change the law so that she's able to turn back the boats, because the French have been using a loophole in the international law to escort these boats away from the French waters and essentially handing them over to the British border force. So Priti Patel is now finally acting on it, so that's good. Polly says, "Hi Maya, do you think the silent majority will start speaking and fighting back against the cancel culture at some point if it gets worse?" I think we are already seeing signs a bit when you have certain big woke capitalists, so-called capitalist brands and companies making a U-turn and rejecting the cultural Marxists and the cancel culture, and we had celebrities also. I think it's already happening, and I think if it gets worse, we're fine. We're this culture. I've said it before that I'm not pessimistic, but we have been shooting ourselves in the foot for the past decade or so, few decades actually. We became complacent. We didn't realize that the communists could come back. But I'm now more optimistic. The way things are going, I think people are now becoming more aware. And the younger generation, Generation Z, are slightly better than the millennials. Not all of them, but slightly better. So let's stay positive. Kapilan says, "Hello Maya, I am really sorry to ask you again this question. Do you support the Heathrow expansion and why?" Well, as a capitalist, so my position on this is overall, I am in favor of upgrading and improving airports as a whole. So even Gatwick, even Stansted, but I believe in local democracy in the sense that as long as the local areas living near these airports give consent, because my issue with this Heathrow stuff is nothing to do with the environment in that sense. Greta Thunberg saying we're all going to die in 10 years. No. The airports that we have and the air capacity in the UK, we are far more behind the majority of the developed world. And so there is a lot of space to actually improve this. And it's actually good because, if you improve the business routes, then more opportunities will be here. And actually, more innovation could actually even help these environmentalists who want to come up with new inventions. But in terms of Heathrow, I'm generally in favor, but as long as the people in the local area give consent, because they live there, it's their area, and you've got the issue with congestion and pollution and noise pollution especially. So Big Bam says, "Why is everyone who opposes your opinion, Maya, block you on social media?" Well, if you mean me personally, it's because I'm hilarious. No, I'm not really sure. I don't really say. I mean, yeah, I say a lot of controversial things on Twitter, but I'm not that bad. But they do that. The question is general. Mostly people on the left do that. Some people on the right also block people. I don't block people unless they actually annoy me and harass me all the time or send me DMs. I'm not really against censorship. Philip Page says, "Maya, do you believe that governments are moving towards a more authoritarian style?" On a social level, yes. Civil liberties and these issues that we have, it's not even on purpose. The governments in general, especially in the UK, are very reactionary in these issues. Whereas economically, we've kind of been authoritarian for decades now, but they are still trying to be slightly more pro-free market. But in terms of civil liberties, yes. I mean, the more we have these progressive route in the future and we modernize our societies, it is becoming more like the old sci-fi movies where everything is becoming more centralized with tech, CCTV and ID cards, and we have to fight back. It's not good. I'm not completely pessimistic, but it is getting slightly towards anti-libertarianism. Norseman says, "Hello Maya, do you think if the EU keep dragging their feet, the UK should start trading with the rest of the world in September and not wait till January?" Well, we can't do that, and not just in terms of legally because of the withdrawal agreements and the transition period. We have to wait till December, not just because of that. We can't trade with anybody, freely trade with anybody in September, because all the trade talks that we have, the trade agreements will not be ready by September. It's impossible. So all we can do is to show the European Union that we are serious about becoming a global Britain, a pro-free trade Britain, is to show them all this evidence that by December, January, we have all these trade deals in place, prepared, so that they know that we don't need them. And then that way you could actually force the EU to step up their game and save themselves by signing a trade deal. If not, we'll be fine. As we said, we have all these other countries that we've been talking to, but we can't really do anything yet because there's no point in kicking off. So we just have to stay strong, and I trust David Frost on this issue. These are the questions we have for this week. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, become a member, check out the link in the description, or just go on youtube.com/myitc/join. We are going to improve the channel over the next couple of weeks. We've got massive news for you guys soon, and we are expanding it, generally speaking. And for especially the membership club, unlike other YouTubers that get donations and money from the supporters, I actually want to give something back. So we've been doing weekly Q&As. We are doing the Zoom video calls. So for the members, check your inboxes, because I just sent out the email earlier for this week's Zoom video call. We got these. Obviously, we have priority access to our events that is coming up soon, and exclusive content. We have the weekly video podcast and a lot of other things, but I'm actually going to expand this. So you as members, if you're paying something, then actually I want this channel to be your go-to channel instead of paying for your BBC license or Netflix. Ignore all of them. So you could actually get more out of this channel on MyITC. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.